Okay, all right. All right. Good morning, good evening, everybody from whichever part of the world you guys are joining in. We are very excited to take you through one of the most demanding topics from the Dreamforce 25 tour, that's vibing with AI and agents. And we will be bringing or diving into MuleSoft agents and agent fabric, exploring how they are shaping the future of automation and connected intelligence. Next slide, please. All right, just a few housekeeping rules. Before we begin, a quick reminder that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. So make sure that all your purchasing decisions are based only on the features and products that are currently available. Next slide, please. All right, so we have two of us speaking today. My name is Tintu Jacob Shaji, and I'm from Customer Success Group at Salesforce and an active contributor to the MuleSoft community. And we have an incredible speaker join us today, Shravan, who will walk us through all the exciting capabilities and insights in the space. Shravan, over to you.
Thank you, Tintu. Hello, everyone. My name is Shravan Kumar Nerala. I'm an integration architect practice lead at K2 Partnering Solutions. I'm a huge AI enthusiast and as well as a heavy contributor to the MuleSoft community as well. I'm also like a top MuleSoft mentor of 2025, and recently I kind of stepped in a new role of MuleSoft meetup leader for Detroit. So anyone who has like exciting stuff they want to present within the space of MuleSoft, feel free to reach out to me and we can host a session together. All right. Okay. That being said, so let's jump on today's agenda. So today it's all about AI and agents. That's all we were going to focus on. Okay. And inside this one, we're going to first start off with the AI wave. What is it and how is it? How did we even come here? The second thing we're going to do is vibing with AI. This is going to be our main presentation of the whole thing. And third, then we're going to jump into the agents part and we're going to discuss more about agents and we're going to see how agent fabric kind of works together. And we're going to see a quick demo of the whole thing and then we're going to take in a lot of questions. And here's one quick thing. I would like to keep the sessions as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions or have any thoughts, comments, feel free to like put them in the chat and Tintu and I can actually like take a look into them and respond to it accordingly. Okay. And oh, I see like a lot more people coming in. So, hi everyone. Okay, so that being said, let's start off with the AI wave. So, for the past few years, right, we have been seeing like there is a huge adoption in AI. We are seeing like a lot of things coming in. Companies are providing some intuitive experiences. They are kind of providing much more tailored experience to your customers and things like that. And AI is kind of driving that force. And not only with the organizations, it's also with the developers. They are building like some amazing stuff out there. Take for example coding assistants or co-pilots. Instead of the user actually like writing everything down, whatever the pain points that they had as part of the development, the AI is kind of assisting them in kind of resolving these issues as early as possible. We also have something like a PR reviewer bots. There is like some kind of models that can actually generate content like text, images, and as well as videos. And these days now we can also see audios. And it's super exciting time right now, right? And to understand like how this whole AI actually has been transformed and how it has been working and how we actually reached here, let's look at this in three forms. The first one is the AI wave of evolution of intelligence. So initially it all started with something called the predictive AI. Remember the machine learning era? Models looked at the past information, whatever the users has provided, and it used to learn from it. And then basically make two things. One, either it could forecast the data, or two, it could classify data. That's about it. When it kind of was doing the forecast, that kind of really gave us like a good control towards like what we want, what kind of data that we provide, and what kind of output we're getting out of it. And this is the one which kind of powered our spam filtering or fraud protections or like any kind of product or movie recommendation systems. All of these are powered by the predictive AI. It worked great, right? It was useful, reliable, but the scope was very narrow, right? And then if you were to ask anything beyond its capability, what it used to do is it used to fail. It doesn't know what to do. All right. Then came in the generative AI era, or the one we kind of passed. So or in currently. So this is where everything actually changed. AI could not just predict the data, or it can also understand the data now. And it also, the best part is it's also able to generate the new data points as well. And this is got very, very exciting, because once upon a time, whatever the responses that you have provided part of predictive AI, their predictive AI are very like what do we call standard messages, like, hey, say hi to this particular person. It's kind of like a rule based system. In the generative AI, it's kind of more tailored experience. It kind of generating the text specific to your context that you're providing, and it kind of was working amazing, right? But this is a very, very beautiful thing. The reason for that is because we are able to interact with the AI, and we are able to get everything done just by asking it. And it was great. But the problem with the generative AI is it could not take any kind of actions. And that's exactly where we are at right now. That's the agentic AI era. So what I say is, in this one, basically, there is not just question and answers anymore. It's taking actions now. It's making API calls. It's querying databases, getting the data from different external sources, and kind of acting based off that. It's understanding it, making an action about it, and then basically like also responding to you in a human understandable language. And this is great, right? So to understand these three models in a specific way, what we're going to see is how this AI actually has evolved as an intelligence basis. Okay, so initially we used to have something like a pre-LLM chatbots. Before the LLM chatbots, everything's like rule based. Remember those regex expressions that people used to write for the chatbots? Whenever you used to send out a message like, hi, I need some help with this order, and you provide the order number, what it used to do is, in the background, we used to have some kind of bunch of if conditions checking, like, hey, you know what? If there is a word called order and a particular number, gather these two details and basically provide a response to it accordingly. It used to work, but the thing is, it's kind of like very restrictive. And then the LLM era came in, and basically what happened was the chatbots were able to understand what we're actually telling, and it's able to fetch the right set of information. It is able to understand the context of what it needs to perform, but it was not able to do anything as such, because that's kind of restricted at that point of time. And then came the fine tuning era. This is where the we are kind of giving like a specific set of knowledge to it. We're training a new skills to the chatbot and kind of like teaching it how to react towards things and work about it. And this was working fine. But the problem with this is it is expensive. And then came the RAG era. With the in the RAG, what happened is RAG tool, it's basically retrieval augmented generation. All you're doing is you're providing some kind of a database, and inside that database, you have all the it's called vector database, and basically it will store all of your information in it. Whenever a user kind of queries for a particular sorry queries for a specific set of prompt, what happens is it kind of does something called a similarity search. It checks whether this particular message is kind of going similarly close to another text that I'm kind of searching in the database, and provides the data accordingly. And this used to be like really good, because this is much, much faster, and it is enabled by the knowledge. Now it has your chatbots have like a much more capabilities now. And then came the tools. Whenever you have like an external sources of data that you want to really fetch, now it's not constrained to like basically a database, but it's also like APIs and things like that. If you want to fetch that set of information, the tools have been like really, really helpful. It kind of enabled your AI chatbots to actually communicate with these tools. And this is where we have seen the model context protocols that kind of like really, really helped in building these tools and exposing this information to your chatbots. And then finally, we have the agent. This is the key point of the whole thing. The agents just don't they don't just make an action, but they actually make a think about what the user is actually requesting for. They're planning for the data and then basically making an action based off it. So today's session is more towards these agents. I'm going to jump a bit more detail in it. Okay. So what is an agent? Okay, essentially agents is basically like it's a part of completing a huge task. Okay, just like imagine like think of it like a human taking a task. What does he do when you give a particular task? He kind of analyzes the idea, what happens, he plans through the idea, and then executes each one of them, checks if that whole thing is working or not, and then basically consider whether it's a success or a failure. And if it needs some additional help, it kind of requests for more help and things like that. That's the same exact ideology for the agents as well. Okay. In here, we are doing the same exact thing: plan, execute, observe, and repeat. Okay. In order to do this, there is like multiple ways. The first one is the prompt. What is the user want? Okay. So if a user says like, I want to complete this particular session, this is what I will be doing. Okay. and this is going to be completed into what's converted into something called as a task. For example, let's say that take this as an example from a Slack. If I want to send out a message to a particular person, what that becomes is basically like a user prompt, and the task would be like sending that message to that particular person and getting a success, and that's my task. In order to perform this one, what are my instructions, what are the things that I can do, and what are the things that I'm not supposed to do? These are supposed to be like defined as part of my instructions. And finally, the persona defines like how to react towards errors and how do I respond back to the users and things like that. This is kind of giving a kind of persona to your agent in how to react to things. So once we get this particular set of information or the user instruction prompt and details, we go into something called the planning state. The agent kind of makes up with a plan saying that, hey, here are the things that I'm supposed to take care of. First, I need to identify who is this user. Second, I need to like send out a message to him. Third, I need to check if this particular user actually gets this message or not. Is it a success or a failure? And while I'm planning for each one of these steps, I also have to make sure that it comes up with a reason. Why am I doing this particular action? And that's exactly what we are training your agents to do it. In order to do these three things, what it needs is a LLM. LLM is basically the brain of this whole operation. And then memory. This is kind of telling as your agent is iterating to multiple steps, it kind of saves this information in its brain so that what happens is it kind of comes back and looks at the memory. Okay, I already performed this action, so I don't need to perform again. And it kind of goes on to the next step accordingly. And the third one is the tools. All you're doing with the tools is making an action with it. All right. So that being said, we are going to focus on like a MuleSoft provided AI agents for us. And what are these agents and how this actually enable our developer productivity at the moment. Okay, so I'm pretty sure most of them already have heard about it. We have a new something called new products. One of them is the MuleSoft Vibes, or it used to be called as the Dev Agent. This is one of the coolest part of the whole thing. White coding AI agent basically, and that helps you in like designing, building, managing your Mule applications. Instead of you writing your code and prompting everything through, instead of writing your code, you can just prompt your AI agent, and then basically it takes care of generating the code for you automatically. We're going to see much more detail about this one later in the next slides. And the next one is the document generation. How many of you actually love writing documentations, by the way, out of curiosity? Oh, not sure we can get a message. Tinto, do you know by any chance? Okay.
Yeah, probably the folks can
Uh,
add an emoji in the chat channel.
yep.
They love writing documentations.
Oh,
Yeah, Sampath says documentation is afterthought.
that is true. Yeah, actually, yes. So most of the time it is an afterthought. So basically, like, but a lot of times, a lot of organizations, we see like the developers kind of ignored this documentation part. So recently, we have a new kind of feature that's enabled within our Anypoint Exchange that kind of enables us with automatically generating this documentations based on your API endpoints defined. All right. That leads to the next one, the diagnostic agent. This is the coolest part of the whole thing. The diagnostic agent, whenever your Mule applications are failing or anything as such, all it does is basically like go through your logs and it kind of analyzes what's really going and gives you a suggestion towards like how to fix it. And not only that, it will talk about your performance. It will talk about like whether you need to scale and things like that. Cool, right? So the next one is the IDP, intelligent document processing. So this is the one which kind of like takes the unstructured data like your PDFs or images, and it kind of gives you an answers or structured data out of it, and it utilizes AI in the background. Okay. And then at any point of time it is not sure about something, there is this concept of human in loop, meaning like whatever it's generated, it kind of triggers an email to a particular human, and then they have to confirm whether this is right or wrong. Okay, cool. And then that leads to the next one, connector builder. We all most of the time actually work with a lot of SaaS platforms, right? But the thing is, a lot of times these SaaS platforms may not have a connector, but they do have APIs, right? connector builder is kind of like Connector builder is kind of like, what it does is it kind of takes in like your use cases and as well as the documentation link, and it will automatically generate the document, sorry, it will automatically generate the connector for you, and then basically it will be published in your exchange. All you have to do right now is just use the connector and you're done with it. So it's kind of like the fast way of like generating a connector for your Mule applications. Okay. And then not only these things, we also have many more connectors. And these are related to, these are not per se AI agents, but they're more of like AI connectors. Okay. Take, for example, like an Einstein connector or a Mac connector or something. I mean, there are like so many other connectors like those, right? So all of these things are actually enabling like AI in moving forward. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah, no questions, Shravan. Yeah.
All right. One second. Is it me or the screen is not moving? Did it move?
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right. So let's jump on to the actual session of today. So today we are going to utilize MuleSoft provided AI tools and agents, and we're going to do cool things. One, we're going to design our API. We're going to build an API and as well as manage the API, and we're going to do everything through AI. Meaning, like I'm not going to touch a single piece of code, okay, unless it's really required. So that being said, the MuleSoft API lifecycle actually contains these three stages. So we're going to integrate AI in each one of step, and we can kind of move forward. Okay, cool. So let's start off with the API specification. So what we typically do is write before we kind of write our APIs. The first thing we do is write a specification, defining these are the endpoints that we need and things like that, right? So in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to install Visual Studio Code with any point code builder in it. And once you have that, all we're going to do is we're going to enable our vibes and ask it to like prompt this particular information, saying that hey, I want to create and RAML based Salesforce system API with opportunity, account, contacts, and lead endpoints. Make sure to provide examples in separate folders and MuleSoft recommended RAML best practices. That's all the prompt I'm going to provide, and let the AI kind of take care of building this whole API spec. Typically, if I were to build this whole thing by manually, it takes about like a couple of maybe like a few hours, right? So let's look at how it actually looks. One second. So this is our anypoint code builder or the Visual Studio Code, and you can actually see like there is this button of like the dev agent in there or the vibes. And inside this one, what we're going to do is we're going to prompt the message that we have shown as a prompt and see how this actually goes in. Notice this AI agent is actually like generating everything step by step. Okay. And once you do that, what happens is notice it actually starts triggering multiple tools and it starts generating a lot of details in there. If you were to look at it, there is some like a 200 responses, 400 responses, 401, and everything's being captured up here. And notice the detail of information it's doing. It's providing a description, it's following the base URI, documentation, security schemes, everything's being followed. And here I kind of clearly mentioned it to like create examples folder and then basically like track all of these as a separate folder. Notice how it actually does. Inside our Salesforce system API, you can actually see the examples and then basically your exchange.json and as well as a README file, which defines the whole asset, what it does. And finally, the root document as well. And notice once the whole thing is complete, it kind of gives this green text kind of saying like, what did it actually do? And at any point of time, the MuleSoft vibes found some kind of errors or anything as such, it kind of goes about it and basically fix those linting issues as well. Okay. Any questions on this so far?
Yep, I don't see any questions. Go ahead.
All right. So that being said, now that the API specification is done, what we can do is we can also ask the same vibes to publish the API specification to the exchange. And when it does that, what will happen is it will publish the whole API spec in there. Okay. So the next part is the documentation generation. Like I was mentioning in the previous step, whenever we publish our API asset, all we have to do is just click on a button to generate the documentation. Let's see it in action. In order to do this one, first we need to have something called Einstein enabled part of your Salesforce environment, and it needs to be connected to your MuleSoft org. Once it's generated, all you're going to do is we're going to go back up here. So everything that happens is once you have published your same Salesforce system API into your exchange, you will see something like this, your asset. And once you click on that, basically you have all of your endpoints on your left-hand side, defining each kind of a method, like whether it's a get method versus a post method and things like that. If I were to write this documentation much clearly, it will take like few hours. And if more detail, it could be like days too. Notice how what happens up here. When I click on a generate documentation, notice how it actually generates a documentation with an overview, purpose, authentication requirements, the configurations that are required to be performed, and as well as like the URL environments and a detailed endpoint descriptions. Meaning like it's an account endpoint, and notice how it actually tells it's you're performing a get slash accounts, its description, and as well as available query parameters, and the request example details and a response of complete whole thing. Once you provide these details, it kind of comes the whole thing as a draft. So once the draft is like you approve the whole draft, click on the publish button, and guess what? It's ready. Your API documentation is ready for use. Cool, right? So the next part up here is the implementation part of your whole API. In order to do the implementation, there are three main steps that we're going to focus on. Okay, one, create a mule application. Two, we're going to update the configurations. Three, we're going to run the application and make sure that the mule application is running. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to provide a prompt saying that using the published Salesforce System API in Exchange, let's implement the API with the defined best practices. Notice here a keyword is defining best practices. I'm going to talk to you more about how we actually implemented those best practices inside our vibes. Okay. Oops, 1 second. So let's start going back to our Visual Studio Code or the Anypoint Code Builder, and let's go click on our dev agent. Once we click here, I'm going to paste the prompt that I have provided to you earlier, and here I'm going to click on this button of rules, and then I'm going to provide my rules. Notice there is something called MuleSoft-rules.md. This is a new file that I have created, and I've provided the best practices that are required for my organization. So when I click on it, it will have like all the clear documentations defined up here. Notice it kind of talks about the MuleSoft implementation best practices. I'm asking it to reuse the assets from the exchange if it's available. Next, it needs to implement an API get router whenever it's kind of implementing it with an API instead of implementing separate flows by all itself. Two, we're talking about the naming standards. Three, we are talking about like whether to use dot properties versus the YAML files that we have to create, and as well as where do you want to track the configurations, how you want to maintain them, and everything as such. I've kind of clearly defined like each one of these details. And once the whole thing is done, I'm going to close it. I'm going to ask my dev agent or the vibes to actually like run. Click on run and notice what happens. It will start and go about triggering each single tools and then basically create a mule application for you. The whole mule application will be created up here, and it takes about like a 5 to 7 minutes ish to complete the whole process. And once the whole thing is done, you will see like 1 second. Let me give it a second. Excuse me. So notice there is the DWL file that it actually created up here. This is the DWL functions that your Mule application requires. And then for it kind of created as a separate folder, and as well as it kind of tries to build your Mule application up here. And there is a failure for this one. What it does is it goes back and basically like resolves the dependencies as well. And once the whole thing is done, 1 second, I'm going to go back. It will give me like all the things. It gives me a whole summary of whatever the things that it has completed, right? The key details saying like I have implemented with this API get router, and then I've used the Salesforce connector for this one. I've performed like CRUD operations, logging, and database transformations. How it actually performed everything. It gives you a complete summary of the whole thing. Now, here's the next part of the whole thing. Let's open the Mule project and see how it actually looks. Notice this is just like your Mule application. Again, so far we haven't put in a single piece of code, right? So, and that's how the whole Mule application is kind of built out. And here is the next point of the whole thing. Once the whole thing is done, we're going to go back to our Mule application and we're going to update our credentials. So go into our SRC resources, secure, and I'll update my credentials. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go back to the Mule application. I'm going to click on run. Once I do that, let's see whether the Mule application is actually deployed. So few key things to remember. Whenever you're generating code with AI, please make sure to like separate your branches and things like that. The reason for that is because sometimes the AI could hallucinate or it could generate some kind of bad code. Always make sure to like create a separate branch before you kind of commit it to the actual code. Okay. So that being said, up here, if you were to look at it, the Mule application is deployed. So basically your development is complete. If you were to go back into the flow list, you will actually see like all the endpoints are implemented in a easier way for us to like look at it. All right. Any questions on this so far? Mhm.
I don't see any questions.
Cool. All right. Finally, we're going to do the API management. Inside the API management, all we're going to do is we're going to create an auto discovery and then basically add it to part of our project, right? And then here is the next part. We also want to apply some kind of rate limiting policy. All of these things, we're going to perform it through a prompt again. Again, we're going to create an auto discovery, add it part of our Mule project, and as well as add the rate limiting policy. Let's look at how it actually happens. In order to do this, I have separated this into two separate prompts, and this is going to act like a prompt chaining, but it still kind of works. Okay, so let's see how that works. First, I'm asking it to create an API instance and the auto discovery ID to the project. Once I do that, notice what happens. The API, it will start, Vibes will actually start analyzing my project, what's happened so far, and then basically it will make an API call to my Anypoint Platform APIs, and then basically like add that details to here. Notice one key thing up here. When it actually generated the auto discovery ID, it kind of creates as an environment property. This is because of my best practices that I've defined as part of the earlier sets. So the API.id is now actually automatically configured for me. Once that's done, it kind of confirms is there any kind of linting issues or anything as such. Once that's done, then we're going to apply the rate limiting policy now, and we're going to perform that operation. When we are doing this, again, it makes an API call and making sure that all the details are provided and things like that. Once the whole thing is done, let's go back to the API manager and let's click on refresh. You will see that the Salesforce System API Salesforce System API is created and the API auto discovery is created up here. When we compare this information with the details available in our code, it should be matching. One second. Okay. And that being said, we'll go back to the policies and notice that we also have the rate limiting available. And then we're going to click on edit configuration, and you should be able to see the whole thing. Notice the 15 requests per minute. Cool. And that's about it. So the things that you have done so far: one, you have designed a Mule application; two, we have created a Mule application from scratch; three, we have managed our Mule application. And here's the thing: you can also click on deploy. I mean, you can prompt it to deploy the Mule application, and it takes care of deploying the Mule application as well. Cool, right? So the amount of code the user as a user I touch is kind of pretty minimal in this case. Okay. Any questions?
No questions. Just I see a question saying, "Can we get the prompt, which is used to define the organization best practice?" So I'm gonna paste the prompt there. Um,
Sure.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I can continue, sir.
All right. Have you got any slower videos? I can actually slow these videos down. Actually, I can share you the links, and you can actually. I think YouTube has some kind of a playback speed. Sorry.
Yeah, once when these videos get uploaded on YouTube, you can, reduce the speed and check that out.
Yeah, playback speed. I guess that's the word. Sorry. All right. So the next one is agents. Now that we have seen all of these AI agents, let's talk more about how these agents actually are and what's the communication and what's the problem. See, the thing is, if you have just one single agent, this is fine. Everything looks good. But the thing is, when organizations adopt these agents, they kind of developers kind of like build in a different languages. One of them build in Python, one of them could build it in JavaScript, the other person could be building in some other language. And building these agents is not the problem. The problem is trying to get them communicate with each other, right? In order to do that, what happens is we need to do, Google has introduced a protocol called A2A, agent to agent protocol, that kind of works on something called JSON RPC messaging system. Okay, and you can get your agents to communicate with each other, and they can actually start communicating and work around, collaborate, and make things working. Okay, this is fine, but the thing is, the as we are building more and more and more agents, this is going to be a waves of problems. It's going to start creating lots and lots of problems. So the one of the biggest thing is the silo agents. If I have like a starting building one of them in Python, one of them in JavaScript, and one of them in a different language, everything's kind of located at different locations. I will not have the visibility of what agents are built, and I don't want to duplicate the same code again and again, or duplicate any kind of information again and again. The second thing is it's about like the management. How do I get each agent to communicate with the other agent, and as well as maintain, I get to see the observability of the whole thing. That's going to be like a missing. The next thing is the governance. What if your agents are starting to communicate with each other with the PII information? For example, let's say something like your credit card information or your personal SSN number or things like that. And this is going to be very, very scary. And the governance is going to be very key as part of this one. And finally, the utilization. Who is using what agent and how are they actually working? You need a complete high level idea of where this is and how this actually works, right? So, and that's exactly what we're going to focus on, and that's going to segue into the agent fabric. Tintu, uh, handing over to you.
Thanks, Ravan. And yeah, we saw all this cool demonstration on how you can build your agent and how you can code on the code builder or IDE, right? And we clearly know that the future of automation is here, and it's built on a coordinated network of all these AI agents. And that's where our MuleSoft Agent Fabric comes in. So it is a unified solution to transform all your scattered agents into, say, secure and high performing workforce. Okay, so it's built on four pillars. Shravan, if you can change the next slide. Oops, did I lose him? Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so it's built on our agent fabric is built on these four pillars. That's discover, orchestrate, govern, and observe. And this fabric allows us to create an environment, say, where your agents can operate in a secured and coordinated network, regardless of where they are built. So, let's start looking deep into each of these pillars. Next slide, please. So, the very first one is discover. So this is a very foundation of agent fabric. If we cannot say effectively find and catalog our AI assets, then for sure we will be facing duplication and it's a management chaos. So the MuleSoft agent registry is designed to be a single source of truth for your entire agent ecosystem. It catalogs, say, every AI agent, tool, and assets regardless of its origin. Whether it's custom built in house, say it's embedded within a SaaS application, or even sourced externally. And so this single catalog built on top of your existing is always built on top of your existing exchange. And we all are very aware of anypoint exchange, right? So this makes our agent ecosystem, say, composable, so that developers and even other agents can dynamically go and search and discover and even reuse all the existing capabilities. Okay, and let's move to next slide for our next pillar, and that's the orchestrate. Next slide, please. Okay. Oh, sorry, previous one. Thank you. So yeah, so say once your agents are now discovered and you found them in any point exchange, the next one is orchestration. So consider this as your say central nervous system of the agent fabric. And the core function here is about the agent broker. So agent broker is an intelligent routing and coordination service that acts as say a context aware routing service, connecting and coordinating your agents across different domains and systems. Okay, and this broker is powered by LLM of your choice, allowing it to analyze your complex requests and match it to the task that will be, absolute fit for your agent or tool. And what is the outcome here? The broker turns a collection of scattered agents into a high performing coordinated workspace. And this brings us to our next pillar, that's the MuleSoft agent governance. So we all know that effective orchestration must be balanced by governance in order to mitigate your risks and ensure compliance. Without it, again, your orchestration becomes chaos. Hence, we have MuleSoft Agent Governance, which acts as an enterprise policy framework for your entire agent network. And you can leverage your existing trusted assets, say like your Flex Gateway, MCPs, your A2As, to control and to enforce these guardrails. And this framework will help you apply your consistent policies and compliance controls across every single agent interaction, again, no matter where the agent is running. And this is very vital for protecting the sensitive information and controlling your agent permissions. And what is the benefit again? By providing all these controls and ensuring compliance, you're in alignment with your business objectives, allowing your teams to innovate and scale with confidence. And that brings us to our last pillar, that's observe. And here it is using your your MuleSoft agent visualizer. So this pillar is very essential for establishing trust and driving, say, continuous improvement, right? So your agent visualizer makes every agent interaction transparent and accountable, meaning it helps you untangle the complexity of, say, multi-agent interactions by turning them into an interactive map where you can um, be able to understand the real-time health. You can spot the bottlenecks and even identify the risks. So all these will help your teams give a clear visibility into your agent performance and helps in better decision making. So, yes, to summarize, these are all the four pillars. And now I will let Shravan show you how all these come in terms of an action. Over
Sounds
to you,
good.
Shravan.
Thank you, Jintu. So now that we have learned about the agent fabric, let's look at how we can actually implement it. Meaning, like, let's get all of your agents into one single platform or one single way or place to manage everything. Okay. In order to do this, the first thing that we need is the prerequisites. So you need to have something called a managed flex gateway as part of your anypoint platform. And the next one is the Cloud of 2.0 environment. And that means with the private space and a private network configured. And not only that, once we have these three things, the next big thing is your agent. You need to have at least one single agent available, and you can have like multiple MCP servers. Or even if you don't have multiple servers, that's fine. The whole agent fabric will start working with just one agent as well. Okay, so let's look at a quick demo of how this whole agent fabric actually works. Let's see it in action. Okay, so here's a quick demo of it. And if people have any questions on this agent fabric, I also have the source code available on the GitHub. I can share that information as well. Okay. And I can also like, if you have more time, I can actually like show you like how it actually works too. All right, cool. All right, so let's start with this one. This is the agent fabric. So what happens is, in order to create an agent network, first you need to have Anypoint code builder. You cannot build this using the Anypoint Studio anymore. Okay. In order to do this one, all you have to do is just click on new project, and then basically you will see something called the new create new agent network. And once you do it, what we're going to do is we're going to define like our broker details and everything as such. On your right hand side, you can see that this is a YAML file. This is not like your typical MuleSoft application development, but this is more like a YAML file. Inside the YAML file, you will provide your configurations for your Mule applications or your agents. And using that information, your Mule application will be generated later. Okay, so let's start to see how this whole thing actually works. First of all, we have the Mule agent network. That's the label of our whole thing. And then we have the agent, Muley agent broker. That's the name of my broker that I'm going to use. And as Tintu has pointed out earlier, there is something called the orchestrator, right? And that orchestrator is this Muley agent broker. Okay. I have provided like a clear set of instructions towards like when to use it and what can it actually do. What are the skills that are available? What is the input information format versus the output format? And is it capable of like providing push notifications and things like that? And if you are familiar with the A to A protocol, this is just like that. This is the A to A card that you're defining. Okay. And once you have provided all these details, all we're going to do is we're going to take each one of the agents and we're going to start integrating them part of our toolchain or the network. In order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create something called the agent section, and we're going to define the agents that are available. Okay. And this is where I'm going to define like that there is a Muley agent that I've created, and it is a metadata of like where is that hosted and what is the platform it is actually using. And then the MCP servers, whatever I have right now, I will provide a label towards like a name to it and a label towards it, and the metadata towards like what kind of transport protocol it uses and how it needs to be communicated. And then I also have a Slack MCP that I've created. I've provided the transport details in a similar way. And right now, it kind of, you see there is something called a slash MCP. You can also do the SSE as needed. Okay, that's supported as well. Once you provide these details, we also have something called the LLM provider. Like Tinto mentioned earlier, we actually have we can you can actually bring in any of your favorite LLMs and then basically start using it. By default, out of the box, you can actually use the Open AI, and then basically like you can just mention it's like an Open AI, and you can continue with the whole process. Okay. And then finally, we define our connections. These are the connection details that are going to define like where each one of these agents are located, the actual URL of each one of them. And once I provide that details, we have something called the exchange.json, and here we can actually provide like our secrets, any kind of secrets that you actually have, like your API keys or your Slack MCPs, for example. It could be your API keys or your credentials or OAuth tokens, whatever it is. Anything could be like tracked as part of this variables. And notice that I have created some kind of variables up here, the environment variables. Those are kind of referred up in the exchange.json. Once I have this set of information, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to publish all of my assets, whatever the details that I've defined part of this, into my exchange. This kind of creates something called the visibility of your assets, what's available to everyone. So let's go about it. All you have to do is just press enter, and you will see like it will ask you what version of your asset that you're trying to publish. Press it in and click on publish. Once you do that, it will create all of these assets within the exchange environment. One second, let's go into the exchange. And inside the exchange, you will see like a new sets of asset types are available right now. As you can see, there is the MCP, there is the agent, then there is the LLM. You see those? These are like each single different assets that we have defined as part of our agent network. Okay. So once you click on each one of them, it will actually, we can actually see more details as needed. Click on like for example the agent broker, and you can click on the card details, and you will see the whole card details that we have provided earlier. Okay. And then followed by, you can also go into like each one of the MCP servers, and you can click on the details, and if you provided any details as part of your agent network, you can actually see them. Right now we only provided two details, that's the reason you only see two. Okay. And you can actually go about like clicking on each one of them and see the same set of information. Now that you have your assets published in your exchange, the next big thing what we need to do is we need to have these assets deployed into our environment. In order to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to open the command prompt again, command palette, and then basically I'm going to say publish the deploy the agent network. And once I do that, wherever you have published your Flex Gateway, the managed Flex Gateway, select the environment and your the details where you want that information to be. Once you provide that details, you will also provide like your card URLs and as well as the credentials that you have, and you will click on deploy. Once you do that, what will happen is you will have like once the deployment is complete, inside the visualizer you will get to see like your agent broker is connected to all the agents that it's actually working with. Notice this is the agent broker that we have created, and it is actually working with the Muley agent, Google Drive, and as well as the Slack MCP server. And if you have more tools that are connected or more agents that are connected, you will see a much wider graph accordingly. Okay. And we'll jump into like monitoring. Sorry, I think runtime manager. Let's go into the runtime manager and let's click on the Flex Gateway, and you will see like your these are your managed gateways that I have created earlier, the ingress and as well as the egress. Ingress is going to be acting like your input. This is going to be like a public endpoint for your agents. So whatever the request that you're getting in, this is the ingress that is going to take in, and the egress is the one which will be talking with your agents. Okay, agents or the MCP servers. Okay, so let's go back to the applications and click on the Muley agents. This is the Muley application that it actually generated, and then notice that there is no public endpoint enabled for this one. And if you were to check in the properties, you will see like all the properties that you have defined are actually showing up here. And the next thing is inside the ingress, you don't see like any kind of public things. Let's go back and let's click on the Flex Gateway, and let's click on the ingress gateway right now. Once we do that, you can actually see like there is the public endpoint created for that. And then we're going to take that URL, and then we're going to paste the Muley agent broker. That's the broker name that I have set. And I'm going to ask it to provide me the agent card. If you guys are familiar with the A2A protocol, this is like just like that. Okay. And when you were to click on a pretty print, you can actually see the whole agent card defining its identity of what it is. Okay, let's click on the APIs and you will see the agent broker that is kind of deployed there. Cool. We'll click on view details, and you can actually see the whole API instance that is created for it, and where the whole how is it routing and everything, as all the other details. Now, in order to work, now that this whole thing is hosted, now let's trigger our agent broker to do something. Okay, so in order to do this, what I'm going to do is, one second. Uh, I'm going to go back to the Postman, and I'm going to paste the URL of my agent broker, and as well as the location of it. Once I do that, I will be providing some kind of a JSON RPC message. Inside this JSON RPC message, I will clearly define like what I want. Okay, if you were to look at the text up here, create a file name sample doc in a drive containing the text hello Shravan, and then send a Slack message to Shravan confirming the document has been created. So this is what I wanted to do. I want it needs to interact with two services right now. One, it needs to work with my Google Drive. Second, it needs to send out a confirmation message to my Slack. Let's see how it actually does. So for the time being, what I have done is I've taken this whole JSON message and I've converted that into a simple API application, API application to act as an interface, so that we can actually like send that information to the my orchestrator. So I'm going to prompt saying that slash API slash prompt, and I'm going to provide the prompt of what I want to do, and I'm going to click on send. When I do this, this will take about like a few minutes to complete the whole task. And now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the monitoring and see how what's happening in the behind the scenes. Inside this one, let's click on the traces. Let's click on the traces and we'll select our environment where our application is deployed. And you will actually see like all the interactions that it's actually doing right now. And notice there is like a 200 okay for each one of them, and how much time it actually spent on each one of the duration. It's kind of giving you the clear details of each one of the operation that it's doing. Now let's go back to the runtime manager and let's check the logs. And you can actually see like I've enabled the debug logs up here, and you can see like there is this JSON RPC messages kind of moving from one location to another location, or one agent to another agent, and it's kind of communicating all these details. And the orchestrator is kind of like handling all of this information in the background. Okay, once the whole thing is done, what I wanted it to do is create some kind of a document. So I'm going to refresh my Google Drive and see if it's created. Notice there is something called the sample document.doc, and here is the content that I've asked it to create. And let's close it. Let's go back to the Slack. Now let's see if we got a message. Click on the Slack, and you will see like on the right hand side, you will see there is something called just now the message has been created. Notice that hello Shravanella, I created this document called sample document.doc in Drive, and here is the link for that. Cool, right? So this is how the whole agent fabric actually works. So any questions?
Yeah, we can, move forward.
Cool. And cool. And that leads to the final thing. Any questions? And one more quick thing, everything that you have seen right now, I've kind of like put them in a blog post as well. You can find them in my Medium post. Feel free to check them out, and you can actually like see how the whole thing works. Okay. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay.
Awesome. I have two questions come in. Let me stop the recording and probably we can take the questions offline.
Sure.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining the session today. And Shravan, that was wonderful demo. It was more of a show and tell, which we really appreciate, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be helpful for the community, especially now we are all starting to look into agent fabric and to see how all these agents are coming in place. So it's wonderful. Kudos to you. Thank you for putting your time and effort, and your willingness to speak here. And we highly encourage all the attendees to take a look at these and get your hands dirty in these new concepts. All right, thank you.